Kevin Robillard is a campaign reporter for Politico, joins us now. So, Kevin, give us an update. 60 days now back on the clock until the next potential shutdown. What do Democrats really get out of this last deal?
Not very much. They sort of survived to fight another day, perhaps proved to some elements of their base that they were willing to sort of go to the mat for them, although other elements of the base seem irritated that they didn't, push harder, maybe make a shutdown longer, try to win an argument over a more prolonged period of time. Really, what they've gained basically is perhaps a little bit of leverage that really only comes to them if McConnell doesn't follow through on that promise to hold a vote on legislation extending those DACA protections, or on something like the DREAM Act, or on some broader immigration package. If that promise is broken, that might give them a bit more political leverage in a few weeks.
So do you get a sense, Kevin, that there could be another shutdown in February?
I think it's fully possible. I think it's way too early to tell just yet. I think a lot is depending on how well sort of these negotiations over a bigger immigration package go. There are moderates in the Senate working on deals like this. Of course, the White House hasn't looked very favorably on a lot of these agreements. They've sort of suggested that all these deals are too liberal. A lot of that has come from sort of people like White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, like Stephen Miller, who's one of the president's top advisors. Both of them are known to be sort of immigration hawks. And so really, I think there's still a lot up in the air regarding this immigration deal and how that will end up playing into the spending deal. And don't forget, there are other things that Democrats have also sort of sought beyond DACA in these spending deals, and those things could play as well. Some people want more funding for the opioid crisis. There's also negotiations just going on over how much to spend on defense versus non-defense needs. There's a whole bunch of other issues beyond DACA that could also potentially provide sort of a hold-up for a bigger deal.
That's sort of my big question here. If they couldn't manage to figure out a deal where our own CBS News polling shows that 86% of the country believes that these dreamers should have some sort of pathway to citizenship. Folks on Capitol Hill get that and understand that. So how are they going to, in 3 weeks, be able to negotiate some sort of a larger scale immigration bill when they couldn't even figure out DACA?
Yeah, I think that is, the skepticism there is very well warranted. I mean, look, the big problem here has always been, despite the overwhelming popularity of sort of extending protections for DACA recipients, or for something like the DREAM Act, that the problem here is that Republicans control the House of Representatives, and that basically that means that, to a certain extent, a majority of the Republican basically, Paul Ryan's not going to bring anything to the floor that doesn't have the support of the majority of the Republican conference. And so while a bill could easily pass with basically all these Democratic votes, plus maybe a third of the Republicans in the House, he really needs to bring on a much larger portion of Republicans. The best way to get that portion of Republicans is for President Trump himself to endorse a deal, and he can sort of bring these people along, give them political cover.
Yeah.
But right now, Trump isn't involved in the negotiations necessarily.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
And a lot of times he's getting pulled back.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kevin. We'll get to the pullback in just a second, but he tweeted out today, "See you at the negotiating table." I'm curious, do you think that the shutdown has actually given him more leverage on this issue?
I mean, potentially it sort of showed that they wouldn't just buckle at the first sign of opposition from Democrats. One thing that was also interesting was there was, I guess we're now calling it the cheeseburger summit between Schumer and Trump on Friday as the shutdown was nearing, where they tried to negotiate a bit there, and nothing got done. It's possible Trump has gained a little bit of leverage basically by just showing Democrats that just having political, public opinion on their side isn't going to be enough. But really, both these sides are pretty much in the same place they were before the shutdown.
I'm curious, let's say a larger immigration bill protecting DACA doesn't go through. Is there a way to gauge how this could impact midterms?
If this doesn't go through, that is a very good question. I think one thing Democrats are a bit worried about, that is if they don't get this done, that some parts of their base might be a little bit demoralized. That's been something I've heard from a few Democrats. However, many other strategists think that they're just so fired up and so angry at Trump that their voters are going to show up. I don't see the shutdown, at least, having much impact on the midterms. There's too many news cycles between now and then.
Yeah, so true.
And the bigger question of Trump just looms over everything. So I'm not sure that this definitely has a hard impact on the midterms.
So as you look ahead and you're watching these negotiations go down, what are you looking for, Kevin?
I think the biggest thing is where the president actually stands. If you talk to both Democrats and Republicans on the Hill, they're just sort of baffled as to what the president wants beyond a wall. And even then, sometimes the wall is negotiable as to what it actually means. Other times he's like, no, I want, an actual wall built on the border. Whereas other times that just means more border security. People are having a very hard time figuring out what their positions should be, because a lot of what their positions will be, sort of how they stake it out, is in relation to what the president wants. That's particularly a big concern for sort of House Republicans, particularly the more conservative ones, who want to know what the president will give them political cover on, because he's the one who sort of has a lot of influence over their political base right now.
Kevin Robillard with Politico. Thank you for joining us, Kevin.
Great to be on.